ask yourself the question, is there any dissatisfaction in me at this moment? Is there any sense in us that something is going to be found at some future date which will finally bring us to the peace and the happiness for which we long? Is there some expectation with reference to this meditation that something is going to be given that will enable us to find this peace? Something that is not present in our experience now, and that may be present in our experience in the future. Don't be too quick to answer this question. If there is any unnecessary thinking present, it is likely that this thinking is masking a subtle feeling of dissatisfaction. And the purpose of the unnecessary thinking is to distract us from the discomfort of this underlying feeling of lack or dissatisfaction. separate self or the ego could be defined as the subtle tension of seeking. Whether we are seeking an object, an activity, a relationship, or whether our search is a little more refined and we are seeking enlightenment or God, nevertheless, whatever we are seeking, our search takes us away from ourself towards something. It is not possible to seek for ourself. We are already ourself. So any search, even the search for enlightenment or God in the ultimate analysis, implies a movement away from ourself. In fact, the separate self or the ego is not an entity that seeks, it is the very activity of seeking itself. All of us are here this weekend because we have either understood or are beginning to understand that our search for happiness in the objective content of experience is doomed for failure. In fact, our search for happiness in the objective content of experience is our suffering. Most of us embark on this search in the conventional realms of objective experience, objects, substances, activities, relationships, and so on. And then at a certain point, we refine this search. We replace the conventional objects with more spiritual or religious ones. We seek enlightenment, awakening, God. We seek practices, traditions, methods, teachers, and so on. These are all just slightly subtler objects in which we invest our desire for happiness. Sooner or later, we have to have the clarity and the courage to let even these go. Our precious tradition, our precious practice, our precious teacher, and so on. Sooner or later, we must withdraw our investment for happiness in any objective experience, no matter how noble or subtle it may be. The pathless path to happiness is from ourself to ourself. There is no room for an intermediary. No time for a method or a practice. How much time does it take you to take a step from yourself to yourself? So the first step we take here is to relax our happiness-seeking adventure in the conventional world and our enlightenment-seeking adventure in the spiritual world. And we come back to ourself. Instead of following our seeking outwards towards its object, however refined or noble that object may be, we trace our seeking in the opposite direction, inwards or selfwards. To our being that lies at its source. And I hope that if someone were to ask each of us now to describe our being, describe the simple fact of being, I hope that most, if not all of us, would just remain silent. Just as the space of a room cannot be defined with reference to any of the objects in that room or the four walls of that room, because it does not share their qualities or characteristics. So likewise our being, or the fact of simply being, cannot be described with reference to the content of experience, because it does not share any of their limited qualities or characteristics. contents of the room, including the four walls, are limited. The space is unlimited. The content of experience is limited. Being is unlimited. If being were able to say anything about itself at all, the first thing it would say is, I am. And as long as nothing is added to the I am, these words refer directly to being. They are, as it were, the signature of infinite being in each of our minds. The first form of God in our hearts. Keep the I am sacred. The I am is a beacon that shines in the midst of all experience, indicating the place of peace in us, or for the devotees amongst us, indicating God's presence within us. And just as the space of a room pervades the entire room intimately, fills the entire room completely, but is not limited to, contained within, or generated by the four walls of the room. So, being pervades the body and mind intimately. And completely, and yet is not contained within, limited to, or generated by the body or the mind. Just as the space of the room extends way beyond the four walls of the room, so being extends way beyond each of our limited bodies and minds. Feel that your body, feel that your skin is completely porous, and that being flows through the pores in your skin and extends out into the world, pervading the world, saturating the world, filling the world up. But not contained within, limited to, or generated by it. Just as the amness of all selves is infinite being shining in each of their minds, so the isness of all things is the same infinite being shining in the world. In other words, as it says in the Gospels, the kingdom of heaven is not just within us as our very own being. It is spread out over the face of the earth. It cannot be seen directly, but everything that we see is its appearance. It cannot be heard directly, but everything we hear is the sound of its silence. Cannot be smelt directly, but everything we smell is its fragrance. Cannot be touched directly, but everything that touches us is its caress. Be tasted directly, but everything we taste is a flavor of it. Cannot be thought about. But all thoughts are fragments of it. whatever there is, is. Being is one. Its appearances are many. It is the faculties of conceiving and perceiving that refract the one and make it appear as many. Understand, but more importantly, feel that the amness of ourself is the isness of the world. Don't allow the apparent multiplicity and diversity of things to obscure or veil their reality. Feel that the one reality, the one being shines through, percolates through all people, all animals and all things. Remember the English poet George Herbert from the 16th century, written in the religious language of the day. Teach me, my God and King, in all things Thee to see, and what I do in anything, to do it as for Thee. A man may look on glass, and on it stay his eye, or if he pleaseth, through it pass, and then may heaven espy. The world appears to us in accordance with the perceiving faculties through which we know it. Seeing, hearing, touching, tasting and smelling. All of these are limited, so the world appears to us limited. But there is one element of our experience that is not accessed through perception. And that is the knowing of our being. It is that experience that gives us direct access to reality. Having recognized being inside ourself as utterly intimate, impersonal and infinite, see the same being shining behind and in and as the world. So in this approach we first turn away from the content of experience. Why do we do so? Because we have lost ourselves in experience. So we first extricate ourselves, recognize ourselves as the fact of simply being or being aware that lies behind experience, that is free, independent, at peace. But it is then necessary to come back to the world and reconcile the recognition of our true nature with our experience of the world. Otherwise we still live in duality, a kind of enlightened duality. one who is lost in the movie and believes the landscape is a real landscape, has to turn off the movie in order to see the screen. Then we turn the movie back on. We see the screen behind the movie, behind the landscape, in the landscape, as the landscape. We first turn away from the content of experience, the world, our bodies and our minds. We recognize the nature of being or being aware. We then turn back towards experience, towards the world, the body and the mind. And we see being shining behind them, in them, as them. When it is said that the world is an illusion, it does not mean that the world is not real. It just means that the world is not what it appears to be. What does it appear to be? 10,000 things. What is it really? One being, God's being, our being. So to call the world an illusion is not to deny the world or downgrade the world. On the contrary, it is to upgrade the world. It is, in Pasolini's words, to restore to reality its original sacred significance. It is to restore divinity to the world. First, we just see the world. Then we see the world and the one reality that lies behind it. And then we just see the one as the world. First there is just the world, then there is the world and the one, then there is just the one as the world. make this firm resolution in yourself once and for all. Only to know the One. Only to see the One. Only to relate to the One. Only to be the One. Only to love the One. The one who knows only the One, sees only the One, loves only the One, and is only the One. There are no longer really formal times of meditation or prayer, although we may, of course, still choose to close our eyes and sit, being only the One, knowing only the One, loving only the One. But we would not essentially be doing anything different from what we are doing throughout our ordinary, everyday lives. This is what they mean in the Orthodox Church when they speak of praying without ceasing. our whole life really becomes a prayer.